Greetings all, Professor Vincent here. Once again, I would have my face here on my webcam, but unfortunately, my webcam is acting up at the moment. So, while I would love to have my face visible for these notes so that you could see me, know more about me, unfortunately that's just not feasible at the moment. I might try to re-record this and upload it with my face visible, in the event that I can get my webcam working, but if not, this is the version we're kind of stuck with for a moment. This is our persona notes, that is, how we write with personas. In order to talk about how we write with personas, we have to answer a couple of questions. The first is, what is a persona? When we write or speak, we present slightly different versions of ourselves depending on our audience and purpose. That is, depending on the discourse within which we are writing, we present a different face of our personality and we change how we express ourselves in that context. This version changes depending on those two factors above. It's never quite the same in two different settings. For example, think about how you write in two different settings, both online and for a class. When you read the writing that you do on your social media account and the writing that you do for, say, English 1A, does the writing sound the same? What was similar? What was different? There are probably more differences than similarities between these two kinds of writing, but on a deeper level, I want you to think about why those differences occurred. That is, why did you present a different persona to these two audiences rather than the same persona? What makes an online social media persona different from one that you would use in a classroom? And what makes that classroom persona inappropriate for a social media setting? Well, those things come down to four basic factors. Four factors that we use when we construct a persona. The most common thing that we might change is our tone. So are we serious, humorous, sad, angry, or detached? There are a ton of other options for tone. These are just some examples. But you can create a lot of variation in your persona based on the tone that you use. So in class, I'm more likely to crack some jokes or make some sarcastic comments. When delivering a eulogy at a funeral, if I do that, the best case scenario is that I get booed off stage, and the worst case scenario is that I end up in the ground next to the person I'm eulogizing. That's one of the jokes I was talking about. The second thing we might change is our jargon. So what kind of specialized vocabulary are we using? This is something we often do without thinking, but as we write and as we speak, we use specific language based on the audience we're addressing and the discourse we're writing within. The writing that you do in your biology class has special terminology that you probably wouldn't use on Facebook or while playing video games with your friends. Likewise, you wouldn't use that video game terminology when writing for your bio class. At least I'd hope not. We might also change the complexity of our language. When I'm talking to my friends while I'm just hanging out, I use a lot more simplified language because it's just easier. But when I'm in an academic setting, I'm going to show off that I have a fairly big vocabulary. Finally, what kinds of arguments and evidence are we using? The kind of argument and evidence that win an argument in a YouTube comment section aren't going to cut it in one of your classes, and it's important to know what kinds of arguments are appropriate for different kinds of audiences, because that shapes the persona that you create. Therefore, we need to remember that a persona is always a deliberate choice. We present this version of ourselves on purpose. Though we might adopt this persona subconsciously or consciously, in all cases, it's based on our audience. And you notice a slight typo in my PowerPoint presentation there. Across discourses, personas look slightly different. Very different once you get to know them a little better. A scientist persona often uses a serious tone characterized by very specialized jargon, by the use of experiments as evidence, and by complex scientific language. A historian's persona might use humor more often than a scientist. It relies on less specialized jargon, and it presents historical accounts as evidence, something that a scientist would try to avoid doing as much as possible. And it often uses less complex language because it's trying to address a more general audience. Finally, your English professor uses less serious tones, relies on specialized jargon still, but a different jargon, uses textual evidence instead of scientific or experimental evidence, and employs complex language as well, although that last one might just be because I'm trying to show off. The important thing to remember in all of this, though, is that your audience is the most important thing in shaping your persona. Your audience is made up of people in your discourse, so they're the ones who will dictate what discourse you are writing within. Who you're writing to will dictate the choices you make in the 4 categories above. As a result, you will need to adopt your persona as you write across different discourses. That's it for this video lecture. Thank you for watching. This has been Professor Vincent. I'll see you in the next one.